This is CJ Box, and you're watching Crew Reviews. It's a good place.
Let's raise a glass, boys. We have CJ Box in the house.
Hey, what's happening?
Welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
He's a two-timer.
Uh-huh.
There y'all are.
The good kind.
No, he's going
I
to
don't
go
think
back
that's
now.
a good.
No.
I don't think that's a good way to put it.
No, well,
Return, yeah.
listen, you're on the Crew Review, so it didn't really.
You know.
But here's the thing, man. You last time you were on the show, we were talking long range, which was phenomenal, and you followed it up with Dark Sky. You do us a favor and our listeners a favor. Could you give us a Grand Teton height view of what's going on in the story?
Sure. Dark Sky, Joe Pickett, our protagonist game warden, is tasked by the governor of Wyoming to take out a high-tech billionaire social media mogul, elk hunting. The reason is because the governor wants this guy to consider putting some huge server farms in Wyoming, help our economy. We need it. And Joe Pickett is, because he's a state employee, is asked to take him because the governor wants some control over what, a rogue outfitter might say to this guy. So at the threat of his job and his agency, he takes him. He meets the mogul at the airport, who the guy flies in on his jet with his entourage, and within just a few hours, they're on horseback going into the Bighorns. It doesn't take long from there before everything goes completely awry. Once they get into the mountains, they lose their communication, they lose their weapons, they lose their transportation. It's very much with the background of a very high-tech kind of social media debate going on. Joe Pickett is basically in survival mode with the high-tech guy, trying to save his life from some people who are hunting them.
Yeah. So Joe meets this guy, Steve 2, kind of a self-tagged, nickname. And like you described, he's this Silicon Tech billionaire. When Pickett meets him, you kind of get the immediate scenario of what it would be like for Pickett to meet a guy like this. Is Price based on some real folks that you've met in your time up there, or maybe even a couple of stories from guides that you know?
Yes, it's been really weird. I'll back up a little bit. It's really weird because this book was actually completed last April, at the beginning of the pandemic, which I thought would last till August. That's how well I figured that out.
Same.
But at the time, what I saw, even after the book was complete, was a complete demographic shift, at least in my little part of the world, where wealthy individuals have bought ranches sight unseen. They've moved here. The area where I lived got the reputation of being kind of in a bubble, and we were inundated with people all summer long, well into the fall. Many of them with green Colorado license plates lining the river, by the way.
Excuse me about that.
But the fact is, there have been more hunting licenses and fishing licenses sold in the last year, at least in Wyoming, than ever in history. And that's from a lot of people who suddenly started thinking, where can I get my food if I can't, if things really get bad, if I'm on my own. that was kind of the idea behind this, and the fact that I read an article a few years ago about Mark Zuckerberg, who prides himself on learning something new and big every year. He taught himself over 1 year to learn and speak Mandarin Chinese. And then for 1 year, his thing was to procure his own food. Sure. There was a story from another high-tech billionaire who went to have dinner with Mark Zuckerberg and followed him out in his backyard as he went out and killed a goat so they could eat. So I'm always fascinated with the idea of people who don't have any kind of background in outdoor or sporting kind of culture to suddenly embrace it, and the way they come at it and the way they think about it. It's kind of admirable that at least they want to recognize where they get their food, but it also leads to, real conflicts and different kind of visions at elk camp in the mountains.
Well, I thought you did a really good job of kind of changing our expectations of who he was going to be. I mean, every time I thought he was going to react to a certain situation a certain way, you kind of flipped the script on me, and I really found him unpredictable and real, and I love the character.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Living where I live in Indiana, it's not a big city and it's not remote or really overly rural. So I'm always kind of fascinated by the cultural divide between the extremes, the people who live in the bigger cities and those who live way out in the country, so to speak. What, to your mind, are the characteristics that separate the city types from the wide open country type?
Well, certainly, and one thing that's addressed very early on is the gun culture, especially in places like Wyoming, Montana, Colorado, the Mountain West. That is one thing that Steve too and his entourage all remark upon, is the fact that everybody has guns, a lot of guns, and why do people need weapons of war in their normal daily life?
Weapons of war.
Because bears.
So that's one thing. And at least where I live, we're on a ranch, kind of south central Wyoming. The hunting culture is hugely strong here and has been forever. It wasn't that long ago when the schools actually released for Elk Day, opening day, because all the kids were going to be gone anyway. And it's still kind of like that, and people still do greet each other, at the little post office. Did you get your elk yet?
Right.
That's how they open the conversation. So it's an entirely different kind of way of life and way of thinking. I did get my elk the last 3 years running, so I'm happy to say. But that mainly pleases my daughters, who are all little foodies, and they love to have guests over and serve them elk and see what they think. But just there definitely are, a culture clash. And but it's interesting to me how it has been embraced by people who that's the last thing they ever thought they would ever be interested in, is fly fishing or hunting or whatever. And over the last couple of years, and especially with the pandemic, it's really done a sharp turn that I've been noting, and it's very interesting.
Well, as I was reading it, I kept hearing in my head, "A Country Boy Can Survive" by Hank Williams Jr. It was kind of like that. The theme of that song kind of resonated in that book.
I used that in an earlier book, so I couldn't use it again, but I know what you think. I know exactly what you're saying.
Hey, Chuck, I wonder if you're walking down the street, in town or whatnot, can you pick out the city folk, like, as they're walking around? I know you.
It's fairly easy, especially if they decide that they want to look like cowboys.
It's all brand new.
What do they do?
There's like 5 or 6 different tells immediately, usually by the crease in their hat or lack of, those goofy straw hats that people wear, they buy in tourist shops that curl up on the sides. There's another one. Right. If they wear their boots outside of their jeans, there you go. And if their jeans have creases in them because they just unwrapped the package, that's another one. Yeah, there's a lot of those tells.
All right. Well, social media, or rather its effects, looms large, like in the storyline. Steve too. When I was reading the story, I pictured Zuckerberg and like Jack Dorsey, the Facebook, Twitter, like a mesh of those two guys together, because they've actually been on TV in front of Congress a lot lately. And readers, they'll discover a little bit like what Joe Pickett thinks about social media, its pros and its cons. But I wonder, what does CJ Box think about social media?
Well, you know, I feel really prescient with this book, because some of the issues that are brought up are things that everybody's talking about right now, nationally. You know, the cancel culture, the fact that social media giants censor some viewpoints. They like to think of themselves as bulletin boards, but they're actually publishers and censors. And these are all things that are debated within the book. And like I said, it got done last April. So it isn't, you know, necessarily ripped from the headlines. It's ripped from the headlines before there were headlines. And but you could see it coming. I could see it coming. And it's a dilemma, you know, I think. And the thing is, you know, the people in charge of these huge social media platforms, I think they mean well. And I think they have they started out with the right idea, but they've been totally hijacked by 20-somethings in Silicon Valley who have very strong views about what should be allowed to be heard or not. And you know, it's out of control now.
Yeah. Power corrupts, absolutely. So as you mentioned, you got your elk the last few years. And the writing reflects your hunting knowledge, obviously. Have you taken dedicated training in tracking that helped you with parts of this book? Or did you just kind of pick it up as any decent hunter would along the way?
You know, I would say the latter. I've read a lot of books on tracking, and for an earlier book, I spent some time with a tracker who had dogs, actually. But for this one, it was more about, you know, elk hunting is, as you probably know, it's pretty stealthy. I mean,
it really is.
Even though sometimes you can see huge herds of them and you think anybody can just go get one. It's totally different when the season opens.
They're smart.
They're wily. I mean, it really does involve a lot of, there's not things like tree stands. It's stalking, it's hunting. It's checking the wind. It's, you know, going from drainage to drainage. And one of the things always in your mind is, not only can I get an elk, but will I get an elk someplace that we can't get it out? You know,
or you get it like right before
you've always got to be thinking of the terrain and you know, the winds and all those sort of things. And in this book, Joe Pickett, who's not, you know, he's never been like the scariest guy in the room or somebody who beats everybody up, and he's not a very good shot, but he does have enough wilderness skills that he can kind of anticipate what the hunters are going to do coming after him. So they make a lot of jukes and moves and things to thwart trackers. They're not all successful, but hopefully they're enough.
Right. Hey, Mike, have you ever been elk hunting?
Yeah. It's tough. And you get these wide open, it's not like you're in a forest. It's wide open valleys and plains. And so they see you, you know, half mile out. I don't know how you're going to come up on them. And
so there's no up in a tree stand and just
no. This is like you said, it's all stalking and it's scent. It's all that it truly is true hunting. If you know,
I'd love to do it one day. Maybe we'll take a ride.
Get Joe Pickett to take you out.
Yeah, right.
They're big animals. That's the other thing is, once they're down, you walk up them and you go, "Oh my God!
Now I got to take this thing out."
Yeah, now what?
Yes, I need help. Who knows somebody who has a horse?
A four-wheeler. Yeah,
I was gonna say you're like a gator or something. Like put this thing on the car. Hey, so Chuck, let me ask you: is this your 21st Joe Pickett novel? It's your 21st.
Yeah.
So one of the cool things about it is Sheridan Pickett, his oldest daughter, she gets pretty much front page billing in this one, and she's kind of all grown up. And I wonder if maybe you have bigger plans for her in any upcoming books, maybe a new series.
Well, you know, I never think like that. I think a lot of readers who followed the series from the very beginning, Sheridan was 7 years old in the very first book.
Wow.
And it was very much about her and her point of view. And now she's, obviously out of college. A lot of people thought she would be following Joe Pickett's footsteps. She's actually working for Nate Romanowski, Joe's pal, the outlaw falconer, as his apprentice falconer. What I try to do with each book is highlight different members of the family as kind of a star turn in each one. And, they've all been featured somewhat throughout the series of the books. This one I very much thought of as a Joe Pickett book from the very beginning. I thought it was time to strip him down to the studs and put him in a situation where he can't rely on anybody or Nate or anything else. But Sheridan plays a big role because she's the only one who kind of grasps social media.
Right.
When she finds out who her dad has taken into the mountains, she's astonished that he has no idea who he is. But he does.
Right.
And she gets things figured out and makes things come together.
Yeah.
But she's no longer that little girl that needs to be protected.
Right.
Not at all.
She's all grown up.
She's a great character.
It's
gonna be fun to see more of her.
Yeah, she's a little bit lost, but at the same time has a certain grit about her. And, we first see her in the book. She's rappelling down a cliff, checking out falcon nests, and which is something falconers really do. And so she'll take on anything, but she's not like one of these female badass types who beats people up. She's smart and she's resilient, and she's got because she's younger, she's got a different perspective on things.
She's a country girl, with some skills.
You mentioned that you feature different parts of his family. Is it because that your daughters are like, when am I getting my book?
Well, I have 3 daughters.
Get their doppelgangers a little bit.
All three of them think Sheridan is based on them.
Oh,
that's good.
So
and you're doing good.
Yes, it is, honey. Yes, it is.
Good work.
And I, they're my first readers as well as my wife. So
that's cool.
They all get to weigh in on the progress. Girls wouldn't say this, do this, think like this. They're very helpful when it comes to writing characters. And my wife is too.
Good.
Fantastic. Well, despite how spread out everything is in the western states like Wyoming and Montana, your stories portray Saddle String and really the larger district that Joe's responsible for, kind of like a Midwestern small town in the way that everyone knows everyone, or at least everyone knows the reputation of someone. Are there any larger than life characters in Chuck Box's real Wyoming, whether it's the guy who's the best tracker, the woman who could shoot a deer, take off a deer, or just the legendary game warden?
I have used some real people throughout the books, throughout the series. Yeah. People tend to be it's a weird thing in a very rural area. It seems like everyone's more colorful. I think they sort of feel like they have the license to expand their personalities to fill the void. And there just always are a lot of very colorful characters. And, like place where I live, it seems like everybody has 3 or 4 jobs. If you can find anything, you can get anything done, but you may have to go to somebody who you never thought of who might have a skid steer as well, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So you don't do without, but just everybody does all sorts of things. And I think that makes for interesting people and interesting characters.
All the guides that I've used have been really colorful folks like that. They're guiding the rivers in the summer, then they're guiding the hunts in the winter, and then they might be a ski, like a ski guy, for 2 or 3 months. So that's exactly what
right, and that happens here. And one thing too, I find, and I kind of try to, without saying it as much in the books, is the very stoic kind of guide outfitters who, just want to say a few words and In real life, they are the biggest yappers and gossipers.
They're waiting for that tip at the end of the time.
Yeah, all it takes is one drink at night, and boy, you cannot shut them up for the rest of the time.
So true.
So is the reason that everybody's so sort of interconnected and knows each other, is it because since it's so broad and wide open that there's a certain dependency on other people, so you kind of have to get to know this person and that person because, you know, just to survive? Is that what it's about?
Right. And also, you know, in a really small town, where there's some contention about, you know, land use and roles and federal government, federal employees and all that, you can't really form factions and avoid the people you don't like, because there's only one post office, there's only a couple of restaurants. You can go and fight it out at night at a, you know, Forest Service meeting, and then meet those same people next morning at the restaurant. You can't create hard enemies, because you don't know when you're going to run across them, you know, the next time. And I think that it makes for an interesting dynamic. But also, you know, there's also feuds and that kind of thing, but you can't avoid that.
Yeah. There's a bigger sense of community in those types of areas.
Mm-hmm.
Well, getting back to the book, Dark Skies, it's essentially two storylines that come together real nicely at the end. But how did the story initially come to you? Did you know both arcs before you sat down to write it, or did it come to you as you were writing, like from the point of view of Joe Pickett?
Well, I always start every book with 2 or 3 potential books in mind, or subjects or big controversies. And usually they all have 2 at least. They're not always separate storylines. A lot of times they intertwine before the end. In this case, it was simply, you know, the issue about social media, which has been something that really interested me and preying on my mind. And, you know, people embracing kind of the wildlife outdoor culture. And then I read an article about falcon smuggling that I have some familiarity with that, because I used to hang out with falconers way back before it was wildly illegal, and they would sometimes sell birds internationally, generally in the Middle East. And now it's very, very illegal, and it's very lucrative. So somebody who can steal a bunch of birds and somehow get them to the Middle East can make a lot of money. And there have been a few of these guys have been busted. But there's several of them that are kind of famous for not getting busted. And I thought, you know, Nate Romanowski now is not as wild as he used to be. He's domesticated. He's trying to go straight. He's got a baby. He's got a wife. And wouldn't it be cool to have a younger version of Nate, who's much more ruthless, encroach on his territory? So that's the other storyline.
Yeah, and that part, I love that part. Early in the book, the Wyoming political landscape is kind of a significant flashpoint, as you mentioned. The governor kind of directing Joe, saying your job's on the line, without so many words. With wildlife and hunting tourism, such a really a not insignificant revenue stream for Wyoming in general, how vulnerable are those various fish and wildlife agencies to the whims of people in power, like you mentioned in the book?
They're pretty vulnerable, especially now. You know, I often joke to, and especially people in publishing and people I work with on the East Coast who have not grown up in states with lots of public land. Wyoming's 50% public land. All of the revenue of the state of Wyoming, or probably 80% of it, comes from minerals from that federal land. Wow. And you know, with this, I'm not being political, I'm being honest here. With the stroke of a pen, a president can take it all away.
Yeah.
No state face that if they don't have a lot of public land.
Yeah.
And that just happened. Yeah. Again, I feel kind of prescient on that one. But that means, I mean, suddenly a state that has absolutely no deficit and more money in the bank than it knows what to do with is trying to figure out how to pay teachers right now. Right. So that, you know, our legislators are not forward thinking, and they haven't diversified the economy in any way. And now they're scrambling, trying to figure out a way to pay the bills.
Yeah, because you could
The
see
other
that even
unfortunate
from-
thing is that
Yeah, I could see that.
no, I was going to say the other unfortunate thing is because the small population of Wyoming.
Sure, not a
We're
big
talking
voter
about
base.
the federal versus state rights. You have one federal, U.S. representative in the federal government, and
Right.
your interests are not really. Nobody really cares.
There's nobody. There's
you think about it,
right.
it's one out
there
of
for him. Yeah.
yeah.
I
not
always
enough.
tell people who when we have discussions about boy, you people out west seem so cranky about the feds. What's wrong with you, kind of thing. And I always make the point that our president is not the president. Our president is whoever the Secretary of Interior is. And that's what makes all the difference. Few states can say that about any certain cabinet agency, but it certainly is the case here.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to pivot a little bit from the book, but we'll keep the word sky in the discussion. Let's talk about Big Sky. So
Sure.
Big Sky has turned into appointment television for me and several of my family members and friends.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of
Good.
fun, actually. You get so used to streaming the entire episode. It's kind of fun to have to wait a week. Sometimes not fun, but really.
Not fun, I'd say.
Yeah.
Not
I mean, I like the anticipation.
The suspense.
But after living with the books and the characters for as long as you have, what was the experience like watching them walk across your television screen?
Well, it's kind of unreal. First of all, I just wanted to say the title Dark Sky for the novel was figured out long before the producers decided to call the new series Big Sky.
Yeah.
So here I am with all these skies everywhere.
Is it Wyoming or Montana? Where are we?
That's right. But I mean, I knew it was in the works for a long time because David E. Kelley, who pretty much got the series on the air on what they called a straight to series order, meaning
awesome.
he pitched it to ABC and they said, we'll buy the entire season without a pilot. And so it happened really fast, even though he'd had it for about 3 to 4 years and had, we'd gone back and forth on the pilot script and that kind of stuff. And he's great to work with. Any of you, any author who ever has a chance to work with somebody who really likes writers and really likes their books and doesn't just want to steal their characters and do their own thing, that's a dream to be able to work with somebody like that. And it got going very fast. I was able to see the first 3 episodes as screeners in advance. And then they started going at such a pace that they were literally finishing the episode a day or 2 before it aired. So I'm watching it like everybody else.
Yeah.
And, some things that have happened in that series, I think, where in the hell did they come up with that? I would have yelled and screamed, but there's been a few other things where I think, God, I wish I would have done that. So it's
cool.
on the right path. They're finishing up with the book, The Highway now. They're going to go straight into the, not in order. Next one is The Bitterroots, which I'm really curious to see how they do that. But it's unreal. The most rewarding part about it is how it has absolutely made the book sales skyrocket.
I was wondering.
No kidding.
My wife and I were wondering about it. We always thought of it, if we got a TV series, not as a TV series, as the pinnacle of all everything, but would it drive book sales? And we looked at it as 1-hour commercials for your book every week. How nice is that?
You didn't pay for that.
Yeah. And the last time we heard, the non-Joe Pickett books have increased in sales by 20 times. Over the last 2 months.
Fantastic.
And the Joe Pickett books, the entire backlist is up 30%. And that's not even, the show is not even about that.
That
has
That
made
show's
it.
not even about it. God.
I hope your contract kind of has you on a good upswing on that one.
Well, I'm an executive producer, so that means what that means. If people ask, like, "Are you on the set?" No, it means I provide the source material and I cash a check every week, which is kind of nice when you write books.
I want that job, Chuck.
That's easy money right there. Yeah.
It's funny that you said that about the commercial. That's exactly what Mark Graney said when we were talking to him about his book being made into movies, and I really hope it's a big commercial for my backlog, for my back.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
You touched on this, and I want to ask you, so what was your favorite change that they made in the adaptation?
It was in episode 3. It was when Gracie, the younger daughter who's kidnapped, escapes and goes on the run and goes down the river and then gets hit with arrows by the trooper. I love that wrinkle in it. I love the fact that it showed that she's very gritty. She's the tough one. And I love
she's great.
Love the fact that she escaped and went on the run in the rain along a river. I thought that was my favorite part.
Do they ever come back to you and be like, hey, this is what we're doing? Or do you just saw it on like when everybody else sees it?
It's kind of like what publishers do when they decide covers.
No.
They like to say, we really love this episode. We hope you do too.
Click.
No, cash your check.
Yeah.
No, hurry up and write something
Well,
else.
I know when I got mine, they were like, here's your cover, no changes. I was like, okay.
Joyful.
Yep.
Joyful.
Everybody here loves it. We hope you do too. Yes. Okay.
I'm sure you though, Chuck, I think you have say in your covers now, right? I mean, you could say like, yeah, this is good to go, or no,
Yep.
definitely not this.
Yeah.
No, actually, yeah, it has gotten to that point where they'll do a prototype and then we'll toss it around. And I always feel that my daughter's a graphic artist, so I always feel sorry for her when she has clients who say, I just don't like it, but I don't know why. So I always try to say, a little bit more of this, a little bit more of that. Let's not show the guy's face. Kind of just little things like that.
Yeah. More shadows.
That's a great cover, by the way.
Yeah, it is. I like
it's awesome looking.
Thanks.
It's safe to say that setting it's important in any book. Some writers are okay at crafting at it, others are masters at it, and not blowing any smoke up your ass. You're a master at describing the outdoors and Wyoming in particular.
Thank you.
I've been to Wyoming several times when I was working protection for VP Cheney, and your descriptions of the Bighorn Mountains made me feel like I was back in that area. It helps that you actually live in the state, but what can a writer do to help them create a setting that's realistic and believable as you do?
I find I like to write. I love to write this. I love to put the reader in the place, make them feel like they're there. And so that involves all 5 senses. What does it smell like? What does the light look like at certain parts of the day? What's the temperature? All those sort of things, but do it in the briefest possible way. And that's probably the only like blocks of text that I go over and over. It's like, what can I take out and still keep it there? And I find, strangely enough, it's easier to write about the winter or the fall in the summer or spring and vice versa, because it makes me think about it as opposed to be in it. And so the winter books I've written have all been in the summer and vice versa, because it really makes me, really conjure that up. What does it feel like? What's those kind of things. Sounds a little artsy, but I just want the reader to, like in this book, in Dark Sky, I really want them to feel the cold.
Yeah.
When they finally get to a little cabin that's crummy cabin, and they're all huddling around a little stove, and their hands are warm, but their backs are cold. And what's that's like,
Yeah.
Do you go off of recall, or do you look at photos to help spark that creativity or those senses? Like
more recall.
Yeah.
And also with that, do you kind of use that minimalist description because everybody kind of conjures that a little bit different idea in their head of the scene, and so they've kind of helped draw themselves into the story because they've created a bit of an image in their own head, and they're kind of seeing it kind of develop in their own thoughts?
That's a good question. It's more the minimalist because that reason, and the fact that I'm sure you guys are all kind of familiar with Elmore Leonard's 10 rules of writing.
Yeah.
One of the rules, never start with weather, which I do all the time. But the most important one is leave out the parts readers skip.
Yeah, the boring.
So, a long, even like perfect descriptive passage is likely to just be overlooked till the next line of dialogue. So I don't want to have a lot of those blocks of text without something going on, without prompting the story. Sometimes you can talk about the environment by the dialogue of like in Dark Sky, Steve too asking Joe Pickett about things.
Right.
Is it always this cold? Does it get this cold every night here, kind of thing? And so you can kind of set the scene through that.
Yeah.
Well, after 21 books, have you found that your first drafts, you throw a lot of the descriptive stuff in and then go back afterwards and cut it out? Or are you kind of like, I know how to do this now and it's good to go?
No, I still do that, but I tend to do that kind of editing the next day after I've written it rather than at the end when I go back through it. I can kind of tell if my mind starts wandering when I'm reading my own stuff, I just think a reader will be too. Cut this down, maybe move it. It doesn't all have to be in this one big descriptive block. You can make references to it throughout, kind of backfill it as opposed to, setting the scene and showing off how much you can describe things.
Right.
I think it was interesting. You said, and hopefully our listeners and watchers will take heed of that. It doesn't all have to be an exposition. It can actually be in the dialogue, the description, all that stuff.
Right.
That's a great takeaway.
Chuck, what is your writing routine? Like, is it the same every day, or is it dependent upon the rest of your life?
Boy, over the last 11 months, it's been pretty much the same. I'll tell you that.
How many books have you written in the last 11 months?
I'm almost done with the next one, which is nice. I'm so far ahead. But I always start with the ideas, those things that I need to research, and then build an outline. That the way I always look at it is, how can I pull a reader through this controversial topic in a page-turning way? That's kind of the way I do it. And then I start literally writing on top of the outline once all that research is done. And I always, minimum of 1,000 words a day, 5 days a week. Some days are 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 words until I get to the end. And then I go back through it a couple more times. Without traveling, which I haven't done, I've completed the last couple of books in 4 or 5 months, which for me is almost twice as fast as usual.
Now your publisher wants that every year.
Yeah.
Right. How about that? Hey, didn't we,
what I found is it makes for guilt-free fishing and golfing in the summer. The book is done.
The streams are going to open up next month.
That's right.
All right. Well, that is a good thing, dude. That is a fantastic thing. In fact, my family lives in New Jersey, and if the western part of the state doesn't look anything like the Sopranos, and my brother's already telling me, when you coming up, we're taking the boat out. They go out on a reservoir. They have a bass fishing boat. We could do a lot of bass fishing. When you and Logan, my son, when you guys coming up, we're going out fishing with Pop. So, so we're up there. So it's coming up. It's a good thing. But let's raise a glass because CJ Box has gotten through the traditional portion of the interview, and now we're going to get to the silly portion.
I do have some news I'm going to tell you, because I was almost late to get on this thing, because I just got the call from all the Putnam people on Wednesdays, which is today. I don't know when this is going to air. The Wednesday after the book comes out, which debuts on Tuesday, that's when they find out how well it's doing. And the sales of this book overall are up 21% from long range. And
wow,
it's going to debut at number 3 combined on the New York Times list. I wanted it to be number 1 desperately, but the fact that the sales are up mitigates that. So just found that out. I'm happy.
Well, cheers to that, man.
There it is.
That's awesome.
That is awesome news.
Wow.
Dude, to go up 20, did you say 21% over long range?
Yeah, it's been kind of amazing. Yep.
Unbelievable.
I beat Stephen King.
Hey, there you go.
Now you're going to give him blurbs.
Yeah, I'll give you- Well, all right. So let's get into the lightning round. We're going to ask some silly questions. Hopefully you come back with some silly answers. No pressure here. Just having a little fun. So you have a stalker, and he or she has gained access to your Twitter account for 10 minutes. What would you not want them to post?
A picture of me and my dead elk, because I have found out painfully years ago that that's not something that is well received on social media.
I just saw something. There was a guy, football player, Cleveland Browns. I forget his name, but they'd killed a gator, and it was a big gator, but he's a big dude, so he made the gator look small, and he was walking with it over his shoulders, right? And he was just walking through the area, and he caught such shit for that, dude. Like,
My favorite is the people who have the picture of Steven Spielberg kneeling next to the Triceratops in Jurassic Park.
Yes.
And they're blaming him for killing the Triceratops.
Well,
and if you look at the comments, there's at least one person that literally is like, "Oh my God, how could they do that to this amazing?" And I'm just like, "Oh boy."
yeah.
I did a celebrity goose hunt a few years ago, and it was colder than hell. We got one goose, that's it. And I took it. There was a photo of me holding the goose right outside the pit, and I posted that and said it was for charity and all that. I got so much abuse for that because most of the people who saw it had never seen a decoy before. So they thought I was standing in the midst of a 100 geese, and I clubbed one with a gun.
He's just like a baby seal. He went up to a
Yeah.
baby seal and clubbed
Oh
it.
my gosh.
Those, Chuck, do you remember they used to air those, like CBS Sports or Wild World of Sports? They used to take like professional athletes and they'd go out duck hunting and stuff. Like they used to put that on
Right.
television.
Right.
You got to do that behind the curtain now, right? You can't.
American
do that.
That's right.
Great American Sportsman, I think.
Yeah, something like that.
Unreal. All right. So here's my next question. Let's say you have distant cousins who live and have grown up in New York City, but recently told you that they're moving out to Wyoming to get away from the hustle and bustle of city life. What part of the state or which city would you tell them to house shop in?
I would want them to go to, depend if I like them or not.
Right.
If I didn't like them, I'd say, you have to live in Jackson Hole.
Okay.
I mean, you know, if I liked them, I would choose probably someplace like Buffalo, Sheridan, Saratoga, areas that are beautiful but not as resorty,
Right.
and offer a lot. But you know, for anybody from New York, they're going to feel deprived of you know, amenities.
Yeah.
Even Jackson Hole.
Yes, but that's
Oh,
what I would say.
Yeah.
I spent a bunch of time in Jackson Hole. All right. So here's another one.
I
Have
knew
you
it.
run
I
into?
knew it.
Go ahead. What'd you say?
No, boy. I just said I knew it. I was giving you a hard time.
I know. Look, come on, look at me. Where else am I? All right. So we interviewed Lee Child and his brother Andrew, and they told us about how they are living in Wyoming. Have you ever run into them?
Mm-hmm. Yes. You know, we're neighbors in neighbors Wyoming style. They live
What does that mean? Neighbors is different. That means something
Couple
different to me.
about an hour and 20 minutes away.
It's not
I've been to his
neighbors.
place. He's been to mine.
That's
It's over the top
Pennsylvania.
of the Snowy Range Mountains. And we didn't get together this year, of course, like nothing ever has worked this year.
Yeah.
But in previous years, at least once or twice a year, we'd just go visit each other. And I'd get his wife would get in their little Polaris Ranger and take us around, and they'd come over here and we'd do the same.
Cool.
And I have pictures of Lee Child and him wearing a cowboy hat, which I think I could sell that, I think.
Yeah. Can you put that on social media, on your Twitter account?
Yeah.
Be that skinny and wearing a cowboy hat?
I'm not going to do that. But it's fascinating to me that they're there, not far away. There's a bunch of riders here now. There didn't used to be.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Inspiring landscape.
All right, here we go.
All right, Mikey.
What was the most money ever paid for a vintage 1948 Dodge Power Wagon? The same it is now driven by Nate in Dark Sky. Is it A, $198K, B, $214,000, C, $267,000?
Boy, I would say the middle one. I'm not positive about that. I actually wrote a short story called Power Wagon once. And because I grew up with ranchers and they were all World War II vets, and they came back and they wanted a four-wheel drive truck like they had in Europe. And that was the 1948 Dodge Power Wagon.
Folks, if you haven't done it, look them up. They're beautiful.
Yeah.
They're gorgeous. They should redo those things.
Yes.
But I don't know. What's the answer?
The answer is B, $214,000 at Barrett's Jackson, January of 2020.
Wow.
Dude, that is awesome.
They're stunning now. Oh, they're so stunning. All right.
Well, his sales jumped 21%. So I'm sure
he might be able to get one of those. Let's see. All right. Which of these animals found in Wyoming are the deadliest to human beings? Is it A, the bear? Is it B, the bison? C, the prairie rattlesnake? Or D, a cougar?
Wait a minute. What kind of cougar?
The bison.
The answer is bear, A.
Really?
I don't think that is correct.
Well,
I would argue with you about that.
Well,
I don't know of a bear death. I can't remember hearing of a bear death in 10 years, whereas
there's been
every
10 bear
single
deaths.
summer every single summer. Oh, grizzly bear.
They just said bear in general. They didn't give preference to species, but according to the wildlife gaming, there were 10 bear deaths over the last 8 years, I believe, in Wyoming.
Well, I'm not going to. You looked it up,
but I would have said bison with all those idiots like getting out of their cars wanting to go pet like a baby, during mating season or something. Yeah.
If it's on the internet, it's true.
Yeah, it's all true.
It's out on Twitter. All right. Number 3. I live approximately 2 hours south of you. When are we going fly fishing?
Oh, hopefully soon. I can't wait for this summer. I said, I've never fished as many days as I did last year.
Mm-hmm.
I was generally going out 4 days a week. And
that's awesome.
I want to do that again. So hopefully soon.
I'm jealous, man.
Everything got so weird.
We'll get vaccinated.
Travel, that kind of stuff.
I hear you. All right, Johnny.
You're in the home stretch.
All right.
Okay, I'm going to be real easy actually on you. After the world opens up again, where is the first place you're taking your wife?
We've got a couple trips planned. I'm trying to think of the first one. We're going to go to New Orleans for BoucherCon.
We will be there. Shall see you there.
We will be
The
there.
crew reviews will be there drinking at the bar.
Excellent. I'll be there. And then we've got a river cruise in Europe, but that's the next long trips.
That's what my wife and I want to do next.
Lots of short ones.
Yeah.
Look, we've been traveling
Is it a Viking?
as if it were normal for months on end. I told one of my editors in New York, who's been in his apartment with his kids for 11 months. He said, it's really tough here. And I said, it's tough here too, because it takes half the day to find somebody to social distance with. So I feel you.
We live in two totally different worlds.
Yeah.
So second question, since Dark Sky examines some of the negative effects of technology, and every time I turn on the news, there's some frightening tech like a robot that can play chess and then do a backflip and the karate chop. Let's turn around though and find something good. What theoretical technology would CJ Box invent if he could?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. I don't know if I can think of something.
Oh, I bet I can.
I'm always thinking, I wish there were X.
It's okay. We can come back.
I wish that there was short term or short distance sonar that you could deploy on a fishing boat to find out if there really are fish under that bank.
I like it.
So
I like it.
I'd feel guilty doing it, but I'd like to know.
What about the
At least know
robot?
if you're
LiDAR.
wasting your time or not.
You need a robot that can pack out your elk for you, right?
That's what you need.
Dude, they have one of those though. I don't.
That's
Boston
scary.
Dynamics has one of those things.
Oh,
It's
no
freaky
thanks.
looking.
No.
No, you don't want to use.
I don't
that.
know. It's like all the scientists never watched any of the futuristic movies. They
Star
never
Trek.
watched
Just watch
Terminator
Star
or
Trek.
RoboCop or
Terminator.
anything.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Last question. Again, let's stick with the dark sky theme here. CJ Box has been hired or is going to guide a celebrity on a hunting trip. What celebrity would you most want to guide?
Oh, I would say, that you guys have such off the wall questions. I'd say it would be somebody like Chris Pratt, who I know is an outdoorsman. He's
That
a
would be
fisherman.
fun.
I don't know if he's a big game hunter, but somebody who would fall right in and probably really like it, as opposed to me being an evangelist for
Kardashians.
that love it or not.
Right.
Oh, we have those. We've got Kanye and Cody, if you'll recall. So there's some of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna frame it like, who would you most want to torture by taking them on a hunting trip? But I decided to be positive.
Chris Pratt would be
Good.
fun
That
and
was
anything,
kind.
dude.
Yeah.
He'd be fun with
He's a guy.
anything.
Good
And he's
guy.
got that terminal listing coming up with Jack Carr, so that's pretty cool. But we're here talking to CJ Box about Dark Sky. CJ, Chuck, you have been an awesome guest. It's your second time on the show. Killed it with this book. Everybody go out and buy it. Maybe we can push
Thank
it to
you.
#1 New York Times bestseller combined. Thank you for coming on. You were
I'll tell you
awesome.
what.
Thank you.
Let's do a book giveaway. Chuck,
Okay.
can you think of a Joe Pickett trivia question
Oh,
that we can tweet out and then give a book away for?
yeah.
Yeah. What town in Wyoming does Joe and Nate always tip their imaginary glasses to whenever they drive by it?
There you go, folks.
Perfect. We will put that out there and we'll give away a book.
Okay.
So,
Thanks again.
all right.
We'll see you next time.
Thank you guys. I
See ya.
appreciate it.
Cheers,
Thanks.
DJ.
I remembered this time. Yay.
Mm.
CJ Box, Dark Sky. His second appearance on the Crew Reviews. It's a Joe Pickett number 21 novel. Number 21. It's
Easy
awesome.
for you to say.
He's awesome. We loved having him on the show. So, boys, let's raise a glass for Mr. CJ Box. Thank you, sir, for coming on. And we'll see everybody next time on the Crew Reviews.
Yes, here we
What
are.
are we doing?
This is
What
the
are we doing?
outro for CJ Box
I'm sorry, which author?
CJ
We've
Box.
interviewed so many lately.
and Dark Sky.
Everything.
And this is CJ.
It's a Joe Pickett novel.
Yes. I'm gonna make you. I'm gonna
You know
call
what? I'm not
CJ.
hiding you guys, so I'm actually looking at your faces.
You're gonna be CJ Albanese for the day.
CJ Albanese. It's got a good ring to it.
I don't
CJ
mind it
Albanese.
at all.
It was awesome.
Are you
He's
looking at me?
awesome.
Are you looking?
Stop looking. I don't know what I was going to say after that.
Really disappointing you, Chris.
You were so easy, Mark, today.
All right.
Here we go.
All right. So here we
Here's
are.
the
Here we
outro. In 3, 2.
CJ Box, Dark Sky. It comes out when, Sean?
No.
Tomorrow.
Shit. I have no idea.
Next Tuesday, which is tomorrow, based on our drop.
Let's take a drink. Hey, boys. CJ Box was on the show again, his second appearance for his latest book, Dark Sky, which comes out when, Sean?
It comes out March 16th, Chris.
Awesome.
This is
Dark Out.
CJ Albanese with Dark Sky. And
No, I go by CE. It's been going. I'm doing something different. I'm not hiding your faces.
I didn't even show you my hoo-ha yet.
Now we know how you managed to get through any of them.
Oh, I totally black out everybody. I turn the sign and I just.
That's a
you're
coward's
muted.
choice. That's a coward's choice.
Yeah, damn right it is.
This is take me and me.
Boys,
Mm-hmm.
CJ Box, his second. I really. Is this what I do to you guys?
Yes. No, you write obscene pictures and hold them up to the camera.
Are they pictures? Are they pictures?
I'm an artiste.
Or is it just two-dimensional?
There's the real-
This is take me and